propagation. And usually, are we there, Andy?
There.
There.
Let's give a hand to our technical assistant.
Yeah.
And we also thank Anthony because of Anthony, we are staying in here in the library for our classes.
Yay.
So the classes will remain. Thank you.
Okay. There we go. That's that. Okay, propagation. All right, propagation. Okay. So if you look up the word in the dictionary, the very top definition is the action of widely spreading and promoting an idea or theory. And as you read down, the further definitions are really kind of negative. And I don't really like that. It comes from the word propagos, which is Greek, which means to disseminate, but it certainly does have some negative connotations, as in it's also the root of the word propaganda. And I think in the world we're living in, we certainly know what propaganda is. But if you look a little further down, I like this definition better. This is actually the fourth definition, is the breeding of specimens of a plant or an animal by natural processes from the parent stock. And that's basically what propagation is. There are a bunch of different ways to do it, and we'll cover a lot of them, but not all of them. There's some that none of us could ever do because they're meant for laboratories and they're microscopic. And so when we get into like clonal reproduction, we're just not even going to go there. So I'm going to call this instead, hey y'all, let's grow some free plants. Nearly as stuffy as propagation. So, and that's exactly what it is. My name, of course, is Duke Domingue. I am at a growing concern and have been there for about 30 years. I'm a buyer and I'm a grower there. You will see me in the community garden where I have a dahlias spot. They will be there tomorrow. I grow them in the greenhouse, but I never have an opportunity to put them in my bed until much later. So right now, this is where I always ask at the very top, are there any specific questions relating to propagation that you want me to definitely address? Because I want to, in case it's not in the whole spiel that I give, I want to make sure that I hit anything that if anybody has something to do, like, you know what, I really want to know about this or this or this or this. Anybody has something that they came here to learn?
How to propagate my lilac plant.
Lilac, as in a tree? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that might be possible. I mean, I'll talk about it, but that might be possible. There's certain woodies that are super tough, and we'll talk about what's tough, what's easy. Yes?
Boxwoods, native species.
Species boxwood? Like
I don't have a specific on it because I haven't identified it.
Okay. Well, okay, so that's, as we talk about, like, why propagate and why we use which methods, these are both key examples. Like, you have something that you really love, this lilac, and you've never been able to find it again, or you just don't know what it is, maybe, or you just want one just like it, and you just want to do it yourself. And you are the same way with your boxwood, right? Cool. Those are both kind of possible, and we'll talk about, I think I know the right method for both of those, so we'll hit on that. Anything else, anybody? Yes?
Mulberry tree cuttings that have root and when do we do things with?
Yes, yes. That's, once again, layering, super easy. Okay, what else?
Beautyberry.
Beautyberry, okay, calicarpa. We're actually going to do calicarpa today. And once again, it's a great example of a very simple technique that you can do in two ways, and everyone can do it. Anything else? Okay, well, let's get on. All right, so, propagation. There's sexual propagation and asexual propagation. Okay, let's talk about the sexual first. Let's get all the sex out of the way. Sexual is seeds, okay? And asexual is everything else, basically. Seeds we'll talk about the advantages of both of them, but of course seeds come as a result of something pollinating, and then it goes one plant pollinating another, and they have to be kind of within the same realm of each other, and so far as like in the genus, species, whatever. And then an asexual, that's seeds. Things go to seed. You either have to stratify them or you don't. And we'll talk about what that means. And then everything else is the rest of the world of propagation. So let's talk about the advantages of sexual propagation, because there are quite a few. First of all, there is genetic diversity that is unmatched when you hybrid. That's how all the hybrids come from seed propagation, basically. You can, until you get into the, like the clonal level, where you're messing up with chromosomes and stuff like that, and that is absolutely possible. But like the new tomato that has disease resistance comes as a result of sexual propagation, where you pollinate one tomato that has certain qualities with another tomato that has other qualities, and you try to get a more desirable tomato. Every single plant is different. Every single plant is different. So then you're like, oh wow, you're trialing these, you're trialing these, you're trialing these. You discover, boy, that plant is really strong. So then you might use those seeds and see if it maintains 4 generations, what we call 4N. Each seed is genetically unique, and that's why it increases the variety of variation, or that's redundant, in the plant population. And this diversity, this is why we sexually propagate, is because it makes plants more adaptable, more resilient to pests and diseases, environmental changes, drought tolerance, these kind of things. These are all key elements. So it's cost effective. Yeah, they're really small. You get a lot of seeds. There's some things. This plant will produce over 1 million seeds this year. Yeah, they're cheaper. They're super easy to store. Seed library is a testament to this. You know how many seeds you might have in your seed library. It's like a lot. It's a lot. And there's seed banks, of course, all across the world that have seeds of all kinds. And some of these seeds can last like decades. The one in Sweden has some that are, and there have been seeds that have come out of the pyramids that are viable. They're a remarkable organism, a part of like life, because they have everything they need for 3 weeks.
What's the one in Sweden called?
Do you know?
Svalbard.
Yeah, it's got a lot of vowels all crammed together. So and of course, they're so easy to transport. You can mail them. That's how a lot of the seeds got to Sweden. Is somebody has something here. They're like, wow, we don't grow that, or this is gone from where we live. This is an ancient plant. That's an amaranth. And yeah, the cradle of civilization right there. Once again, stored for a long time under the right conditions, and then you sow them when you need. So there's no like urgency. Plants, once they're, you either have to continue to propagate asexually from it if you want to carry it on. But seeds you can just keep forever. So large scale production, this is how we wind up with things like Better Boy tomatoes and early girl bush, some of those determinants that are celebrity, tried and true. They have been around forever. All the heirloom tomatoes that we know and love, Cherokee Purple, German Johnson, a lot of these came from, well, actually, Cherokee Purple did not come from Tennessee. It actually came from the Ukraine. A lot of people don't know that, but like German Johnson came from North Carolina. Yeah, came from North Carolina over 100 years ago. It's a very famous tomato. It has nothing to do with Germany. I always have to like throw in that because, and this is why there's large-scale production on some of those real favorite things. And there's a reason why people still grow celebrity tomatoes. It's super resistant to all the tough stuff. So, and as a result of the large-scale production, it's ideal for mass plantings, crops that feed the world, like grains, amaranth being one of them, vegetables, as well as a lot of ornamentals. Some ornamentals grow from seed, but the culture has changed. Like geraniums used to be seed grown, and now geraniums are all cutting grown. They just bloom better, and they've gotten those genetics perfect. You can mechanize the sowing and the harvesting with the seeds, and you can harvest the seeds a lot easier than you can. Most of this asexual propagation is going to be handwork, the majority of it. So you need people who know how to do it. It's not hard, and it's easy to learn. You're all going to learn. You're all going to be able to do all of this at the end of the day. Okay, long distance dispersal. Of course, it can be spread naturally by the wind, the water, animals, humans. Seeds can colonize an area. Has anybody been to Wichita lately?
No.
Okay, Wichita, I just have to mention this because we were talking about this yesterday and I have pictures, and I wish I would have included one in the slideshow. I was in Wichita a number of years ago. The airline industry moved out of Wichita, like Boeing, Beechcraft, Cessna. They moved out, and they have all these factories that are empty in the middle of Wichita. Well, I had never been there before, and I was just walking down the street, and there were like 6 lanes, no cars in either direction. I'm just standing in the middle of the street, and then I see this big mountain. I'm like, is that a hill? And I walk over there. No, it's a building that's covered with grass because the winds in Wichita blow this grass seed everywhere, this wheat, and it's just like this square mound of grass, and it's because it's a deserted building. It's amazing what biology can do, what botany can do when we're not paying attention or we're not, you know. So if you've seen pictures of like, oh, post-apocalyptic world, plants are going to take over the cities, yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. They did it in just a few short years right in Wichita, and I saw that. More sexual advantages. Okay, so plants grown from seed have a very strong taproot system, and this is where you breed for drought tolerance and just overall stability. It's a great reason to do that. Now, so I grew these from seed, but I'm going to propagate them today from the cuttings, and I wish I had one that I'd already done so I could show you the difference in the root structure, because the root structure from seed is going to be much stronger all the time. Preservation of hybrid traits. So some specially bred hybrids are designed for propagation, and this is where we get like yield is probably the one that they breed for most, is like yield. Now you can also do that with like how you pinch and when you pinch and where you pinch. That's my favorite trick with yield. And also growth rate.
Can you explain pinching to some people that may not know?
We're going to pinch today. Pinching today. So what you do, pinching is basically making something branch. And when we get around to propagating the awful coleus that I have here, I'll show you exactly what pinching is. But when you pinch up and you want to include a certain number of nodes there, so like right here, this was pinched right there, and the 2 laterals formed extra plants right there. So like, here we go, might as well start butchering them. So this, what I just did right there, is a pinch. So all the nodes beneath that are going to double themselves. This is how, when you pinch back and you get something bigger. So here, that one stem was pinched right there at the top, and I have 2. So I'm going to cut that one and cut that one. And we're going to make, a little bit later on, we're going to make 2 more coleuses out of those, and this goes into the trash. Yeah. So there are a lot of, and this is where we're at right now. But thank you for, please ask questions anytime, because I'm known to rant. Certain annuals and biennials can only be propagated through seeds because they don't have a long enough lifespan to be cloned, or to so some things it's really like the only way to do it. Some things it's like it's just the best way because it's faster that way. There's no reason to clone balsam, for example. Anybody grown balsam? Please. Oh God, everybody grandmother grew balsam. It's your heritage. It's the fastest thing ever. It goes from like seed to 3 feet in weeks. And it flowers, and then it makes these seed pods, and they pop, and you'll get 4 crops of balsam every year. It's a great pollinator. But yeah, there's no reason to clone it or to grow it asexually because it's just too fast by seeds, and it wouldn't form a strong enough root system. And of course, heirloom qualities. This is basically about food and taste, terpenes. These things are carried through in seed propagation. So let's see how we get started. So direct sowing, super easy. It's exactly what it is. You take a seed and you put it in some soil. I'm going to show you, and I'm putting on my gloves because this is castor bean. You all know what castor bean is?
Yeah.
While you're putting on your gloves,
Yep.
that balsam, is that touch me not?
Probably. I don't know any common names for it. It probably is because they do pop open like in patients. You know, it's it's really pretty. It's really pretty. And we actually do have some. I moved this. I gotta get this area just a little bit further. Okay, so this is castor bean, and I want to show you. It's in a seed pod because seeds come in different ways. So castor bean is poisonous. Its botanical name is Ricinus communis. It's what ricin comes from. It's when anthrax was made from. It's really not great, but it's also what castor oil comes from. So not all parts of it are poisonous, but I still, just to like be a good boy, show everybody that I have good technique and I don't. So you dehusk it, and then you have the little Ricinus communis seed, and this one is viable, and I can tell because it's got a little bitty white nub on the end of it. Now you can't really see. I can't really see, and I don't really want to necessarily pass this around, but. So basically, I could just kind of direct sow that seed. I'm not going to do that just quite yet, because I'll talk about a few things. Direct sow, that's easy. That's just like planting directly in the bucket. This is good for things that are cold hardy, fast growers, balsam, this. Like, why are you starting this so late? Because I can. If you plant it on the tallest one I got, I planted on Memorial Day, and by Labor Day it was 18 feet tall. It's a beanstalk of a plant. It's a fantastic beanstalk of a plant with huge, enormous leaves on it. Things that don't transplant well are also key for direct sowing. What doesn't transplant well in your world? Squash. Yeah, you can do squash from starts. Corn, horrible. Sunflowers, difficult. Anybody else have anything they want to throw out there? That's just
Milkweed.
Milkweed, yeah. These are things. This is why you direct sow. So don't put them in too early because the soil is too cold. Just wait. You're not going to stunt your plants, but you're not going to get not getting a late start either. It's just direct sowing. So of course you wait until the soil warms and you keep it consistently moist till sprouting. So some people. Like I do a lot of indoor starts indoors because I start in a greenhouse where I control the soil temperature. And I use, let me see, depending on the size of the seed, most of them I'll use this size cell. This is my favorite size cell for propagating just about anything, unless what I'm trying to propagate is almost as big as this or bigger than this. When,
seed and one seed per.
yeah. Well, yeah, if it's tiny seed, if it's something like amaranth, which is just tiny, you just can't make one seed, so you just kind of scatter. And this is how I do it, actually. Well, we're talking about seed starter in just a second. Trays, spot seedling cells before transplanting outside. I just do this because I can start super early. I can start in February and have bigger plants because the greenhouse at that point I can control 70 degrees in soil temperature, which is kind of key. There are other ways to control soil temperature. We'll talk about those in just a second. Sterile seed starting mix. This is key. This is really key, is a good seed starting mix and one that's sterile. Sure, you might have luck in with bad, just dirt, what we call dirt. But we usually use soilless mixes, particularly if it's something that's very precious or very expensive. So when I do an heirloom, I do some contract growing for breweries and restaurants. Most of them are very unusual, rare peppers that you will never see. And some of these seeds are $3 a piece. So I need to have really great germination rate. Because, not only, so if I get 5 seeds or 10 seeds, $30 worth of seeds, I want to get really close to 100. So I want, or if not 100, and this year I got 95% on about 110 plants. This is called BioStart 365. It's got biochar in it, which is really good. But I'm going to pass this around if you guys want to feel it. If you want to feel it, just reach out. It's super soft. It's silky. I swear I could swim in this. Yeah. Yeah, Isn't that awesome? So seed starter does absolutely make a difference.
Where do you buy that?
We handle this, but there's a lot of, there's some good quality, yeah, you want to pass it around? There's good quality seed starting mixes on the market, and it's only been the past few years that this has been like a thing, because to be quite honest, it used to be this just like fine stuff, and I would just like, I use African violet mix because it's the finest, and I just sift out the stuff that I didn't want. But yeah, just pass that around because it's silky, it's delightful, and it's fine enough. So BioStar is for seeds, and it says on the bag for cloning. Okay, so why does anybody have any idea why seed starting mixes are suddenly catching on, and why they might put something like cloning on the bag? Anybody?
Make money.
You can say it. It's not a dog whistle. Thank you. It's not a dog whistle word anymore because it's legal in more than 50 states, or more than half of 50 states rather. Marijuana, propagation, cannabis, CBD, all that stuff. It's very popular, and people used to come to the nursery like, oh, I have something very special. I was like, is it cannabis? Because we've always been really upfront about, tell us what you're going to grow. We'll tell you how to grow it. But so now there are a lot of great seed starting mixes out there, and it's because of medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, whatever you have, CBD oil, whatever, is being grown, and these are valuable and expensive seeds. More expensive than my $3 pepper seeds, frequently. So, yeah. So, you want a seed starting mix that is light enough that you can moisten, but doesn't hold too much moisture. Now, that BioStart, they have 3 different soils, and we just tested them. We're testing them this year, but I'm super impressed. They tell you everything that's in it. It's beautifully produced. They have so the starter, that's a starter, and then they have a soil for all stages of life, and they have something called BioLite. And BioLite says on the bag, for growers who feed more than once a day. Who does that? People who are growing. People who are growing. Yeah, and it's super light. It's nothing but, it's like very, very, very fine perlite that's been pulverized. The 1.5 cubic pound bag of that weighs 17 pounds versus 1.5 cubic pound bag of that, which weighs 27 pounds. So it's like super light. Great. Any good seed starter is going to help you have success in your propagation. So after we get that back, I want to see y'all. I'll start doing some fun stuff. You want to be fast draining, and then bottom heat. Okay. You can use a heat mat. Some people use an electric blanket. The heat mats you can set to like certain temperatures. We sell them. They're like 16 or something bucks like that. And you just put this underneath your seed tray, something like this. I frequently start seeds on a cookie sheet. This is my mock cookie sheet right now. But a little metal cookie sheet, because then it can transfer heat. And since I have 3 greenhouses at my disposal, I never use a seedling mat. I just put them under a table where it's getting 90 degrees. So that's enough heat. Most seeds really do like that heat. Some people use grow lights. Some things germinate in the dark. Most things need a little bit of light. Your seed packets will tell you instructions on whether or not it needs to be covered with newspaper or whatever. But what happens is after the sprouts come up, they are going to need light. After it comes up, they're going to need light. Has everybody felt the dirt? Everybody felt the what do we think about that? Isn't that cool? Makes a huge difference. So what I do is I just sprinkle it on my cell, like that, and then it's like all full. And then I take a little Hudson or a Mister, because with something this fine, you really don't want to rinse it away with the hose. So when I'm starting out, I'll just do it like that. And then I will take my seed, whatever I just picked, and I'll just stick it right in there. How deep? Yeah, it'll tell you on the package. Some things need to be really shallow, some things need light, some things need darkness. Let's see, where are we going? scarification. So this is when you have to break or thin the hard shell of a coat. So this is like nasturtiums, moonflower, certainly this hard, Ricinus communis. It's got a thick thing. You can soak them in a bottle of water, put all your seeds in a bottle of water for 24 hours. Some people add a quarter teaspoon of baking soda in there to make it more alkaline. And they swear by that. When the next day, some of the seeds will be floating and some will be sinking. What are the most viable? Anybody? The sinkers. Why? Well, they absorb the water. Yeah, okay. And remember, that seed has everything it needs for 3 weeks, which is why you don't want to use something that's as a seed starter, even if you don't get a fancy product, that has food in it. Okay, you're going to end up burning the early stages of it. So, some people scarify with a nail file or a little knife. It doesn't take much. You're just breaking the surface. I do it in water. And then when you, like these seeds right here, when you wet them, the little end that told me they were viable, they puff up. And so you can see their little puffiness is right there. So these are getting ready to sprout here. And I have them in my wet paper towel. A little puffy end right there. And I'll tell you, the paper towel method, a lot of people live by the paper. Did anybody sprout with paper towels? Yeah. I think it works pretty well. Some things, if I don't really have time to put them in right away, I'll take them out of the water bottle, put them in there, and I just mist it once a day. Super easy. So stratification, I absolutely love this trick. This is mimicking winter conditions. So some stuff you, so like say you had the best, I'm just going to show you the example. Say you had the best tomato you've ever had. And it's like, oh, I love that tomato. What kind of tomato was it? I don't know. I picked it up at the grocery store, but it was a beautiful, weirdly colored. It's got to be an heirloom. I just have no idea what it is, but I want more of that tomato. You can do it in a year, or in less than a year. You can do it in the same year. You can fruit that tomato. So what you do is you can take yourself, I guess I'll put my knife in the car. Not a problem. I'm just going to stab it. You're going to take your tomato and you're going to open it up, and you can do this with peppers too. You can do this with a lot of fruit. So you know how tomatoes have that goop? And actually, when you look at the goop, it's like around each little seed, there is its own halo of goop. Here we go. Squeeze that out there. Okay. So you're going to take your goop, just like this, and you need a little halo. You want to get out, you don't need any of the flesh. It doesn't want any of the flesh, just the goop. But you must have as much of the goop as possible. What is the goop?
Gel.
It is kind of a gel. What do you think it is in terms of biology? Embryonic. It is embryonic fluid. That's exactly what it is. My friend Mark Warwick at WTCQ does not like tomatoes because he says they feel unfinished. And I'm like, I get it. I get it. I get it. So you got to have the goop. So you collect the goop. And in peppers, it's just going to be like the slightest part of the white membrane. You collect the goop, and I do them in these little cups. Actually, the first stage I usually do on like parchment paper or aluminum foil, so I can see it all. So make sure they have enough goop on them. You let it dry. So you let this dry. It takes about a week. You let it dry. Then you add a few drops of water, and you stir it up and you rehydrate it. Then it makes mold. When it makes mold, it's stratified. You take that seed, you plant it, and you can have that most remarkable tomato you've ever had, as well as seeds for next year. So rather than having to like wait a winter, chill them, let them dry, whatever. You know how like if you grow a tomato and a rotten one falls, and the next year you have little tomatoes right there. That's letting nature do it. Well, if you take the goop, let it dry, rehydrate it, and do it again, you too can stratify within the same season, instead of a year. So that's super helpful. Okay, now, whatever. So, and you have to do this for certain things. Like, there's certain perennials, trees. If you're trying to grow trees from seed, which is tough, and it takes a long time, it's a commitment, you're going to definitely have to do that. Native wildflowers, milkweed, definitely needs stratification, and lupine. So there's similar ways to do all this. The paper towel method is super great. So like milkweed, this is how you do it. Put milkweed seeds in between wet paper towels in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator for about 4 weeks for milkweed. Anywhere from 2 to 12 is how most of these things go. Pre-soaking, of course, talked about that. Warm, not hot water. I use like 24 hours in a bottle like this. I only plant the ones that sink. And then I'll move some of them into the paper towel. I will keep this under the greenhouse table. It does not need light. It does not want light, but it's just moist. This is just those little rice and seeds that I'll just, and they're puffed up at the end. So they're about to sprout, and as soon as they sprout, I put them in a mix.
How old is it?
This is rice and commonus, or
How old?
how old is this? Oh,
I mean,
3 days. Yep. Yep. They'll develop a little root and a little sprout, probably within 7. This is actually one of the fastest ways to get things to take is the wet paper towel method.
And just
But-
mist it every day?
Yeah. And actually, if it's still moist, I don't. You know, you don't want to like drown it, but yeah, I do mist them every day if they're not. I just have that little. But you do check them daily because as soon as you have some roots and there'll be a little white curvy thing that starts to emerge from that puffy place. That's when it's ready to go.
Would that be a good way to take like older seed that you have
Yes,
to see if it?
definitely.
Yeah.
Because then you're not wasting expensive mix.
Yeah.
That's really the best reason. That's a good. I should write that into the presentation. That's the best reason to do that. Is that because you're just like, oh, if you don't know how old or viable something is, you can know pretty fast whether or not it's going to go. Okay, temperature really does matter. Temperature is key in all propagation methods. Seeds germinate. Most seeds germinate between 65 and 75. I would err on the warmer side of 75 too. The greenhouse really helps with this. Moisture. Once again, you don't want things soaked. You just want them moist. And this, right now we're still talking about sexual, so this is all seeds. Bottom watering. So like when I put my $35 worth of 7 pepper seeds in here, then I'm just like, I will put this into this little tray right here, and I will put water in the tray, and not to fill up. I will put it so it fills up about halfway of the cell, and this delightful mix will soak it up. You'll see the color of the mix go from light brown to dark brown. These also have little domes on them too. You're ready. This is like buy this at Lowe's, cheap Jiffy seed starters, and it's got a little dome on it so you can cover it. I actually use little markers. I'll put little markers in here so the dome is kind of resting above it. I don't like to trap it entirely. But yeah, okay. Bottom water. So I bottom water those every day until they sprout. Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm a little bit confused.
Yes.
With the stratification,
Yep.
things like delphinium and stuff like
Yes.
that, it's cold stratification, right? So you
Yes.
it says put it in the refrigerator for 12
Yes.
weeks.
Yes.
So
Oh,
what are you
16.
saying about the 65, between 65
That's
and 70?
germinating.
Okay.
You're-
So then.
What
I
you're
would
trying to,
take the
stratifying is mimicking the conditions of winter.
So I would take the delphinium seeds
Yes.
out after 12 weeks.
Or I would say less than that on definition.
So let's say
Yeah,
they're in there
sure,
for
sure,
like
sure,
8
4.
weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I take them out and they should have some sort of,
No, you're not gonna have roots then.
okay. And
Yeah.
then I take them out and then I do this process.
That's correct, because
Okay.
when you're putting them in a paper towel,
Right,
not a moist paper towel,
okay.
in
So I'm
a
thinking-
Ziploc bag, you're trying to keep them, you're just chilling them.
That's why I
okay? And maybe I misspoke, but yeah, it's just a paper towel. It's not the same paper towel method. It's another paper towel method. Paper towels are useful.
I wouldn't let it go.
They're our friends. Oh no, you're gonna rot them. You're just gonna have some like delphinium seed slush, and that's gonna be like really poisonous too. Yeah, so it's dry. The stratification is gonna be dry in that case. And it is a big part of a lot of stratification, particularly like the tomato goop thing. It's about drying it out, and then it's rehydrating it, and the mold lets you know that all the mechanisms are in place there. Okay. Label everything. Label everything. I swear to you, I know this seems elementary, but I live with these and Sharpies everywhere. And your future self will thank you. Let me tell you what, all seedlings look alike. And if you're growing something very special, very specific for like these restaurants and breweries, they're paying me some money for these special peppers that are white or entirely black or super hot or look like a super hot pepper but are Scoville free. There's one called Fulvia that I'm growing for some restaurant that wants to stuff them with crab. I'm like, great, sounds great. Yeah. Patience. Some of this is fast, some of it's not. Balsam's fast, poppies aren't. There's some things that take 300 days to germinate. That's not like for the, it's like that's the bonsai guy that can handle that. Yeah, some definitely weeks. Peppers are notoriously slow to germinate and need a lot of heat, for example. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to asexuality. That's everything else. So this is vegetative propagation. That's all about growing new plants without seeds, the need for seeds. Now it's very practical for gardeners, growers, farmers use this a lot because you can multiply your crop super fast. Like I can make so much coleus from this sad looking one right here. Not that I really want to. And one of the reasons, or like the key reasons are, it clones the parent. It's going to be identical. Every single plant I make from and I can make as many as you possibly want from this. It's going to all look just like this. There'll be some, a little bit of variation, but you're going to, that one versus this one. I'm going to get this one versus this one. If I grew each of these from seed, I might not get one that looked anything like either of those. But that's a genetic diversity. So all the plants are going to be identical to the parent. They're going to have the same genetic structure. So like me and Amy are huge in the dahlia world. We love dahlias, and it's really important that our dahlias are kind of true and we're getting what we want to see. Those genetics are so. Things like the flower color, fruit flavor, growth habit, disease resistance. Once again, they're going to be identical, which is why some of this is super desirable. Let's see. Faster maturity. You get, I'll show you how fast some of this stuff grew from the last time I did this, and I have dates on all my little tags, so I can tell you, oh, this is 3 weeks and 6 days ago, or this is 9 days ago. You're going to pass the juvenile seedling stage, so there's going to be those first leaves and then the true leaves. So you're already done with that. You're going to get the flowers a lot earlier. You're going to get fruit a lot earlier when you do from asexual propagation. Okay, so you're also going to bypass things that have poor viability, like their seeds that are just like, this plant gives you like 30%, even in the best of circumstances, of rates. No, you're going to bypass that because you're going to know this plant's got strong genetics, that plant's got strong genetics. And there's some stuff that you can't grow from seed because it's made sterile. We have a Thunbergia that we're going to do that way because there's no other way to produce it. So, like, bananas. Anybody seen a banana seed before? Navel oranges, or, seedless watermelons actually do have seed. They're just really, really, really small and hard to work with, and they also are very difficult, picky to germinate. So, practically, the way all that propagated is the cuttings. So, mass production. This is a key in mass production, is making duplicate number of plants immediately. And You'll see this like in the houseplant world particularly. There's certain things that get very, very, very popular and they're extremely expensive. The pandemic brought us a lot of $300 one-leaf houseplants. Thai constellation monstera and the pink princess philodendron and white knight and all this stuff. And then suddenly they're in Lowe's every day for $20 instead of $300 a leaf, and that's not hyperbole. They really did. They were some of those plants were incredible. People were selling unrooted nodes on Etsy for $150. I'm like, that's crazy. But then it came. You're like, oh, well, what happened? Well, what happened was Costa Farms, big national org, bought this plant and started microcloning them in the laboratory and producing them in mass. So suddenly we can all have a Thai constellation monstera without having to pay $300 a leaf for it. Okay, so yeah, tissue culture, grafting, this is just, once again, some of these are commercial techniques that I'm not going to get too far into. I'll talk to you about what it is, but we won't get too crazy. So, so grafting is a great part of asexual propagation. Grafting and bud grafting, which allows you to combine like the rootstock with one plant with the top of another. There's a scion piece, which is like the top, and it goes into a rootstock. And often they do that for disease resistance, or just this plant doesn't really have a great root system. A lot of these fancy new red buds, the weeping cascading ones, they are really cool, but the stock on the plant is probably better off by using the straight up Cercis, the Canadian Cercis or whatever. So sometimes those will be grafted, sometimes Japanese maples will be grafted just for strength. They'll just take an exotic one. They can also like take a big specimen tree of one of the rare ones like white butterfly or dancing peacock and make a bunch of them instead of like, we only have one dancing peacock. How much is that plant going to be? Versus like, oh no, I can cut branches off of this one. I know how to graft. Oh, that's a pretty graft. I'm good at that. So suddenly you stick it on a regular Asian palmatum or maple, and you get more of them cheaper. That's a great reason to do some of that. So yeah, when you propagate via asexual propagation, you don't have to rely on things like pollinators, which can be hard sometimes, or weather, or like fertilization. I mean, what will the weather? Boy, we can't control anything about the weather. Tell Western North Carolina about that right now. So you can do it inside. You can do it under laboratory conditions. You can do it in your house. Anybody can do most of the things that we're going to do right there in their controlled indoor environments. So let's see where we're going now. Okay, so this is cool. Sometimes you just want to propagate specific plant parts, or from specific plant parts, like leaves, stems, roots, and single cell. We're not going to do that, but we'll do all those different forms in just a few seconds. Succulents, coleus, ferns. There's no easier way to propagate a coleus. Don't even bother growing coleus seeds. And succulents, same thing. Jade being one of the very easiest, but I've actually brought a bunch of different succulents just to show how fast they grow and how little space they take. There's no need to do it any other way. Ferns, who wants to grow a fern from spore? No, y'all. Just divide that thing and you'll have millions of them. You don't need ostrich fern. So asexual methods, we're going to talk about cuttings, stem, leaf, and root, air layering, division, which is simply splitting clumps, grafting and budding, and tissue culture, which I'm just going to basically mention. It's nothing that I can really do. That you really need a sterile environment and a laboratory and a lot of degrees. But that's what that picture is. It's flasks of little baby plants. But tissue culture, or like mariclones in particular, is how most orchids are grown these days. And there are places not too far from here, within a couple hours, that do it and make their own flasks and produce their own. It takes some time, but like that's why we're able to have more orchids. And that's why every grocery store has orchids cheap, where they used to be exotic and kind of expensive. So, let's talk about some cuttings. Yeah. I could do a bunch of different cutting stuff today. Stem cuttings. Okay. So we have our little thing right here. Like I said, I like the smaller cells. When in the propagation world, it's all about roots. It's all about getting roots. Roots are the sign that you have success in your propagation world. So in the smaller place, as long as you can tend them and give them what they need, the smaller this little cell is, the faster it's going to root out. And once roots touch the side of each one of these little cells, you're ready to pot up, and then you're going to have a plant. So last time I did this, I did some of this stuff, because salvia is like about the easiest thing to root. So this is labeled 521. That's 3 weeks and 6 days ago.
Wow.
Okay, and this is all you need to do right there with stem cuttings. Salvia is I always use it because it's super fast, and you can go from a stem to this in that amount of time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I usually go down. This is going to be a little bit difficult to explain to y'all. Okay, so I'm going to cut at a node. Nodes are where leaves meet the stem. Okay, so like I'm going to cut there, and I will cut down there. I will go. So it's flowering right now. Yeah, we're going to take the flowers off because that's way too much energy. But can everybody see this in my hand? With that? Yeah, okay, so there's a branch, yeah. So that's a node where these 2 leaves are coming, but there's also a branch and a branch coming right there. And same thing at the bottom. That's also a node. I cut right above a node, so that plant pushes out from that node. But what I want to do is I want to leave these little leaves on for a little bit of photosynthesis. And I'm going to cut off the flowers because I don't want to spend any energy in those blooms going out. I mean, sometimes I stress out the plants just purposefully, just to test, and it does help to take off the flowers. But so I'm going to cut off these bottom leaves, and I'm going to cut again beneath that node because that's where the roots are going to come. Okay, the roots are going to come out from there. So I don't need this part of the stem. Any excess plant material in your mix has potential to rot. So you want to avoid that. So I'm going to cut off that bottom part, and then I'm also going to strip these leaves. I always cut them, because sometimes when you strip, you take away some of the if you will, the tissue, and then once again, you're working on rot. This is a rooting hormone. This is actually rapid root. There are a bunch of them. They're going to be, it's IBA2 and IBA3. They're going to tell you what percentage is in there. They're all pretty much created equally. There's one might have fungicide in it. There's one that might have a proprietary name, something. They're pretty much all the same. This has got a little bit stronger. So all you do is, while the stem is still wet, just going to put it in there, and you want the minimal amount. You want it coated at that wet point, but you want the minimal amount. So I just put a little bit in there, and then I take, where did I put mine? I have it here somewhere.
Does rooting hormone go bad? I've had something
No,
like 30
it
years.
will, humidity
Lasts
will affect
forever.
it though. It
It
will
will.
absolutely get super humid. Well, I wasn't gonna. Usually I take a paintbrush and go and flick it off, because you don't want a huge amount of this. You don't want clumps of it on there. And this little salvia you can just stick right in. I will cut off the top. And in 4 weeks, you're going to have this. Okay, so I will do that all throughout this plant. I'll just take cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. And see, and the other thing I'm doing is I'm making this into a better plant too, because this is gonna bush out, and it's gonna be a big old fluffy salvia. So, you know, a lot of times when I'm pinching back things, I'm just like, oh, that's a pretty coleus. I want more of that. So while I'm doing it, I'll just root everything. Today I'm not necessarily doing that, but, and being a nursery professional, you don't do it with proprietary plants. So like, anybody here from Proven Winners? I'm not doing it, no. But sure. So I'm making this a better plant by giving it more bush. Yeah, in about 2 weeks, that will be gorgeous. People are like, oh, your coleus looks so good. Like, yeah, I've cut it back 3 times. And you're just like encouraging it to branch and to grow. So then I have all these cuttings of this ugly coleus that I just chopped up.
That's not ugly.
Yeah.
She's pretty.
Yeah, you can take it home, maybe. So what I'll do is I will look for like the strongest place. I want a really nice place on the stem that is, I wish I could show this to you a little better on it, but maybe after I get it all cut. I want a nice place on the stem with just a little bit of leaf on top, not too much, frequently. Okay. And then I don't need all this stem down there. I do want a node. I want to be able to plant a node just like with that salvia. So like all those just places where I kind of clipped off the stuff. I don't think. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the node that I want to bury because that gives me enough, but not too much in the ground. So I'll cut right beneath it. I'll dip and stick right there. Like I said, if I have a paintbrush, which I don't know where to put it. Is it? Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I'm in the potting shed, I just blow it, but I didn't put it at the library. This is stuff that you don't want to like inhale. Just saying. So I'll just get it off with that, and that will be in a matter of 3 or 4 weeks. It'll be a salable coleus. Dip and stick. That's what we call it. It's the technique with a lot of stem cuttings. Soil or other media. Some people do this in other things like leca or perlite or sand. I love my new little mix. You cut, you dip, and you stick. Callousing. Callousing is key for certain things. Certainly not with the 2 things that I showed you. These are 2 of the very easiest things to propagate are salvias and coleus, which is why I started there. But jade, which is also super easy, needs to callus. So what I did is I had 2 big jade trees. I got over 160 cuttings off of these 2 trees, all about like this kind of size. I cut them, I put the hormone powder on them, I brushed it off, I just laid them out on a big series of boxes like this to dry for about 2 days. And that's called callousing, so it doesn't rot, so you don't rot the jade. And it might not rot, but you know, whatever. Moisture and supplements. So here's another way of propagating certain things. Not everything propagates this way, but yeah, I don't. So like after I propagate a whole tray of this, I don't really do it. I don't really hit it. I moisten the soil a little bit. I put it underneath a greenhouse table where the greenhouse is about 90 to 100. And they love it. Heat pushes roots, and the smaller the little thing is, guess what? These are black. That's absorbing heat. That's why everything in the nursery industry is black, because you want to push up roots. And roots, like, they're going to go to that heat. The faster I get those roots, the faster I can take this and pot it into a 2-inch or a 4-inch. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, do you miss the foliage at all, or
No.
you just bottom water?
No, I just bottom water, and I don't do it frequently.
What was the
Like,
question?
Yes, ma'am. Do I miss the foliage? No, I don't. I find that I would never like directly miss foliage. It wouldn't be a horrible idea to miss the air around it. You're trying to create a humid microclimate, but you don't want water on the leaves at that point for a lot of stuff. Certainly, like jade really doesn't like a humid climate when it's throwing roots. It wants it dry. It wants it hot and dry. And I did these label because they're not in the ground yet. But I did these a week ago. Yes, a week ago. Today's Tuesday, so I can say a week ago, and just put them where they're super hot, and they're throwing roots. So that means I'm on my way to propagation success. And all I did was cut them down, put them a little bit of that powder on them, and let them get super hot. Okay, that's all I did. There's no, you don't bury things in moist soil, particularly not succulents. Yes, ma'am.
Can you do the same thing just if one of the leaves
Yes.
falls off?
Yes.
And can you do the same thing with an aloe leaf?
Yes.
Okay.
Aloe's a little trickier because
Right.
aloe's full of liquid.
Right.
Aloe's like the gushy tomato.
Yeah.
Aloe you'd want to cut, you would want to like let it, and it would have to be close to, yeah, you wouldn't do it. What part of the aloe do you do?
Because I have
Yes.
two big like mother plants. that
Right.
get all the pups out
Right,
of it.
right,
and I
right,
just
right.
repotted it and 3 big leaves fell off. And so
Yeah.
they've been drying.
I would try it. I would
just
try
like
it.
the rooting powder.
Yeah,
And
I would try
let it
just
grow.
dust it with a little rooting powder. Because that's certainly what made these roots throw so fast.
Yeah.
So fast. It probably would have done it eventually, particularly in a hot greenhouse. But almost all of these have some degree of roots on them, which means I could cut right beneath that node. But like she's saying, you can do it with a single leaf. Like this leaf fell off. I can make a whole new jade plant from this one leaf. Just by like going, literally. I don't know. Sometimes I put it in mix, sometimes I doesn't. It'll throw out roots. You put root down, you don't bury it in anything. People are like, oh, I gotta bury it in soil and then water it. No! No. I missed my substrate, my little soilless mix first, and then I just set them in there. And then I'll bottom water probably twice in 2 weeks, and that's it. And then they'll set roots. I frequently see roots. When you see roots coming out from the bottom, boy, that's success. That's the lottery right there. So like begonias. Nadine wanted me to propagate a begonia today. This is a large leaf bronze begonia. Now this is how we're going to propagate this guy. Okay. This is really super tricky. So just watch.
What?
Okay.
What?
There you go.
Water. Certain things propagate from water roots.
You tricked me
Begonia.
the other day.
Huh?
You tricked me the other day when I asked you. Bring
Yeah,
a
well,
begonia.
This is largely bronze begonia. Water roots. This will throw out where the node is. It will throw out water roots. Now I cut it above the node accidentally because I was also trying to resolve that plant. So this is what I'm going to do right here. Look, I'm cutting off a leaf. So that node right there, that's where the roots are going to come out. So as long as if I put that in water, it's going to throw out water roots. A lot of plants you can stick in water and they'll throw out water roots. Not all of them do the water roots adapt to soil once you put it in there. So that's why people are like, oh, I did that, and I don't do it much because I find it like, unless you really know. Like Angie does anthuriums and water roots. I'm like, oh girl, how? You trust that? I just don't. I'm like, you're gonna spend a lot of time making these roots grow, and you're gonna fortify, you're gonna be feeding the water and all this stuff, and then it's not gonna adapt once you get it in there. She's got great luck with it. I do not. So, but begonias, yeah, that's pretty easy. But there are also other fun ways to propagate begonias. This, we're not there yet, but, so yeah, water, just plain old H2O. Supplements, no. Sometimes I'll add just a drop or two of like a root and grow or something like that. It's a little hormone in there, but not really. I don't believe in over medicating them while they're still kind of young. Okay, so this is great for cuttings. These things that are great for are like pothos, philodendron, all the aeroids. So that's going to be monstera, lepidophora, all kinds of those crazy hot plants. Rosemary, great for stem cuttings. Basil, great for stem cuttings. And I love basil. And when people come to my greenhouse, I have a client who actually I grew her a whole basil garden with like 9 different kinds of of basil down in South Carolina, but I deliver her these basil bushes. She's like, how do you get them so big? I'm like, what I end up doing is I take a basil and I do a stem cutting, I root it, and then it gets bigger and it gets woody super fast. And it's like much faster than any, I mean, you can't find one in a nursery this big, because I start with a pretty good sized plant, cut it, strip them down, root it. I usually don't use the hormone when I'm doing food like that. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to this in a second. So yeah, I don't feed them. Geraniums, great way. That's how most geraniums are produced these days, are stem cutting. So if you have like an heirloom geranium you love, this red that your mother had or whatever, you can cut out that geranium to 1 million pieces. Every node you can potentially make a geranium out of. And the big growers, people like VWI, Van Wingerden, that is exactly how they do it. Is these little 1-inch chunks of geranium. Tomatoes, you do tomatoes this way. Tomatoes are super cool to mess with. Tomatoes and peppers I love because you can like cross-pollinate, you can make your own funky tomato, you can graft them if you're like an idiot with grafting and you want to try something. I'm just like, oh, I can't do this, I'm bad at this. Yeah, tomatoes are forgiving. You can have your scion be really bad and it'll still take. They're pretty remarkable. Coleus. Yeah, these are all good things to do from cutting. So, leaf cuttings. Oh, this is super fun.
Duke, we have a question here.
That's Jade right there. Yes, ma'am.
I planted a very small ginkgo tree.
Yes.
I took a little branch off and I stuck it in water.
Uh-huh.
It's been about 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
It looks like something might be happening. Is that a decent one for a root cutting?
We'll see, won't we? I don't know what my instinct is telling me on that. But yeah, you've committed to it to an extent. And if it is throwing off something that's not mold,
Oh, it could be.
you know, it could be that. But I don't know, it depends. When it comes, woodies are tough. Woodies are notorious. Woody stem things are notoriously tough. Some are easier than others. We'll talk about a few of the easy ones. But so, yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Leaf cutting. So leaf cutting is basically you're going to take a leaf. We'll talk about the things that are good for this, and you're going to do one of two things. This is showing like an African violet leaf that's stuck in a moist perlite. This is showing Christmas cactus. You know how many, you have got big old Christmas cactus. You can make as many Christmas cactuses as you have leaves on your Christmas cactus. Because all it takes is one leaf to make a whole new Christmas cactus. They're super easy too. This is basically a succulent or a jade. Later on, I'm going to show everybody this little tray right here, which is full of things that grew because things dropped into these pots. It's true. I always have a huge collection of these tiny little pots, and I'll fill them up with like a draining mix, like a succulent mix, or sometimes a seed starter. And then like when things like this, you literally just put it on top. You don't bury it. You put it on top. Its roots go out. It goes down. This is a super cool way to do things right here. And that's what I would do with this begonia. So you see, this begonia's got all these big, ribby things on the back. You can do this also with African violets. All you do is you take your knife, or I don't have a knife, so I'm just gonna make a little slice in some of the veins. Like that. I did one right there, one, two, three, just on these little veins. And then in your sheet starter, I would say I would do this in a cookie sheet that's, you want about a 1/2 inch of soil at least, but not too deep. And then I would take my paintbrush with a little bit of that hormone powder on it. I would just touch it on the back. And then all you do is on your moist soil, there we go. You just basically lay it on top, and I use pins, like floral pins, and you just pin it down. And every place you put a little hole on those big veins, which is why I don't do too many, I do like 3, maybe 4, a plant will grow. This is a great way to produce African violets, and it seems like magic. You feel like Dr. Frankenstein when you see a little miniature guy coming through right there. is also the way to do like Sansevieria, super great. Once again, you can do it in soil, you can do it in other kind of media. I always, you know, dip or I brush on and pin it. And moisture. This I do mist I missed the soil around it. Sorry. I can't believe I did not turn off my phone. I don't do a bunch of them crowded up because I want to mist the soil around it. I want it to kind of permeate through. Yes, ma'am.
You said that's in seed starter soil
Yeah.
or perlite? Okay.
I would, but people do it in perlite all the time. Angie's got tremendous luck doing I think perlite's actually probably better for African violets, frankly, because they got that furry leaf, and you want that drainage to just kind of just drain away. I might use the BioLite version of this, which is like a fine dust perlite. That's the one meant for feeding more than once a day because it just goes right through. It doesn't hold anything. It doesn't hold salts either. So yeah, Angie's has tremendous luck with like African violet leaves and succulents and perlite. But succulents, I'll just use like a cactus mix, something that's just real dry. So you can do succulents and charcoal, just nothing but fine charcoal. That's a great way to do it. Christmas cactus, Easter cactus definitely prefers perlite to any other kind of mix. Bottom heat, once again, can be useful. I put them in the greenhouse where it's hot. Yes, ma'am.
You mean like charcoal, like you use in a fish tank?
We use
Or just
botanical charcoal. I don't. Steve, is it any different?
No.
I don't think so. Charcoal's charcoal in my estimation. So yeah, we sell the Hoffman brand or whatever as foam or whoever makes charcoal. It's just charcoal. It's just really about the size of it. I don't like it when it's too huge and chunky. That's good for like orchid mixes and stuff, but for the most part, when it's just like the size of a
So crush a little briquette, a little charcoal briquette, and use that?
I don't know about that. I'm just wondering.
Oh, okay.
Like wood charcoal.
I'm just afraid they put something else in there to make it light, and make it burn.
Well, there's that charcoal that you put in fish tanks too to help the
Okay.
water stay.
Yeah, this is just it's a great filter, but we just sell horticultural charcoal. It's one of the cheapest additives that we get. You know, it's so you might have perlite and vermiculite and charcoal, and you mix that in with like a well-draining mix, and that's what I call my cactus mix. Yes, sir.
Yeah, briquettes have clay and tar.
Yeah, they have stuff. I thought I wouldn't do like Kingsford, whatever it is. As my friend says here, they have clay and tar. Not so great. So this is great for, once again, leaf cutting is great for African violets, Sansevieria, which is snake plant. That's right there. You just put that, and literally you cut off a piece of a snake plant and you just stick it in some semi-moist soil. Once again, snake plant does not like to be too wet, and it will put a little baby up inside. And then you pot that little sucker into the smallest pot you can, because snake notoriously, like so much of this stuff, its early part of life, it prefers to be super tight. What else? Begonias, yeah. Begonias are easy. They just defy definition. You can do it this way. You can stick. I'll stick some of that in there, or you can not. Succulents. Once again, probably growing succulents from seed is a nightmare and an exercise in like Zen, because it will take forever. So leaf cuttings are really, or stem cuttings are the only way to do it. What else are we doing now? Okay, so runners and stolons. I brought some. Stolons and runners. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. So a runner or a stolen, a runner's going to be, the only real difference is a runner's going to be slightly below the soil and the stolen's going to be on top. They're just horizontal things. So I have here I have strawberries. Anybody want some strawberries? Yeah, great. Here, we'll do this. We'll propagate this right now. We'll get it ready for that. Here we go. All you want to do with the stolen is you want to wait for the roots to come out. On a strawberry, they're all over. You see there? But all other things that do this is like a juga, roots. after you get the roots out. After it's, roots are the symbol of, like, we have plant success. Anybody else want some strawberries? You'll take some strawberries? Great. I'm gonna give you a few. You see those little roots out there? See them at the bottom? Oops, sorry. Yeah.
So now she's gonna put some root hormone on it?
No, I wouldn't warm on these.
Just put it in the dirt,
Yes.
soil?
Yes. Here you go. So this is a stolon. As you see, it's not contacting with any soil. Doesn't need to. There you go. Doesn't need to, and it will produce you a strawberry plant. Doesn't have any roots on it. But stick that in the soil and actually see if that goes. Super close. Pretty close. Okay. All you do is wait for the roots. After the roots appear, it's good to go. You snip and you plant. This is one of the easiest ways to propagate. Probably only division could be easier. Strawberries do this. Chlorophytum, that is a spider plant. Everybody's growing a spider plant, right? And you have all those little babies that come out, and the babies are there, and they're great and they're cute, but they won't take until the roots come out. So you gotta wait for the roots, of course. Samachia, creeping Jenny, anybody? The Golden Globes, yeah. Super, this is weight that comes all over everybody's yard. Mint, that's why it's all over each one, that's why you never plant it, because this is how it grows. And then undesirables is what I'm gonna call them. Because like this is how we get like crabgrass and all that stuff. It's traveling by souls. A juga is a fun one. That's a great plant, and this is how you can move it around your yard, but you do have to wait for roots to be kind of really present there. Next up, root division. Okay, this is just division. All it is taking a knife to something. This is really about as easy as it gets. You can do a knife or scissors or whatever. You want to make sure you have enough of your plant, like so. We're going to divide this just by division. This is Tratus scantia, pallida, or purple queen. Some of the old mountain folk call it Little Moses in the boat. I just think it's charming. So basically, I got this plant here. I could absolutely take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could probably cut it into 5 pieces. I say don't be greedy, because you're going to have a lot more success if you let it all have more of a root system or not. I had a knife here, but I don't know. I must have left it in the car. So I'm just going to do this with my hands. There we go. Great. And it is divided. Ta-da! I know that was amazing, wasn't it? No. So this is a soup. This is, like I said, the simplest way to reproduce plants in your yard, for example. Not that this would overwinter here, but some of the things that's good for it do. Hostas being the number one right here. Hostas, all you need is a shovel to divide. And you really can do it anytime you want. I'm not going to tell you you have to wait, but yeah. I love my hostas, and my favorite ones that I can move around. So you just take a shovel, and go right in the center. If you hit an eye, whatever, you'll have more. Hostas great for that. Daylilies, of course. Just divide them right between the fans. Ferns. Why would anyone grow a fern any other way? Ostrich fern. Anybody have ostrich fern? You can't just have one. They just won't allow you. Clumping grasses. This is the way to do it. Chives, absolutely. Rhubarb, peonies, and of course, dahlias. Division, great way, easy, super easy way to grow. And then there are also like hybrid things. Okay, so layering. This is probably the craziest thing that we're going to actually do is layering. So there are two kinds of layering. There's air layering and simple layering. layering is basically just encouraging a root development on a stem while it's still attached to the plant. So this is not still attached to the plant. I just couldn't bring a big old calicarpa in here, so, but you'll get the idea. And basically, the illustrations show you basically how it's done. What you do is, so we're going to do layering first, is that is where you wound the stem, and then some people do it by, I do it by taking off like a branch. I want to get it where it's not, for the best success, I want to get it where it's, where it goes from being woody to being still green. Even though it's not green, like calicarpa is going to be kind of reddish, but it's going from being woody to being more tender. So I'm going to do right here, it's clearly where somebody else had, there was a pruning right there. I'm going to strip off some leaves right there. And give myself a couple inches, probably 3 nodes is good on that. Now I'm going to take the side of my blades, and I'm going to scratch it at those nodes. Frequently, I will use a little bit of rooting hormone, but it's not necessary. This is one of the methods that takes longer than a lot of the other ones, but it's certainly worth it, and it is the way you can potentially propagate your lilac, the way you can potentially propagate your boxwood and the mulberry. Certainly, this is what we're doing today. This is basically a French mulberry. So then you take moist sphagnum. I moisten the sphagnum. This is what I usually do when I'm wetting the sphagnum for air layering, is I put it in with a little bit of root and grow, just like I would say a tablespoon to a gallon. Let this get all puffy up, and you're just going to wrap that place where you have scarred those areas and put a little root and grow on there, and then you're gonna
Underneath the table.
oh, here it is. I use saran wrap, but I didn't have any saran wrap at the store. Just gonna wrap this up like that. You want it to be clear, because you're gonna see roots come through, and that's how you know it's good. And then you're gonna tie it with rubber bands or whatever you want, twist ties or whatever. I usually use something that's a little elasticy, like a rubber band. And you're gonna wait a few months, and then you're gonna see roots coming through that. You're gonna see it in the plastic. At which time, you go back to the plant, and you cut it off, you unwrap it. In the sphagnum is all these roots, and then you plant this, and you have a whole new mulberry, or lilac, or boxwood.
Can we do that with the shrub that we gave Julia?
Cut it up already.
Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine.
I'll tell you why I think not at this point.
How would you propagate it?
Oh, I mean, you could, but I wouldn't do it right now.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't do it right now.
Because she's potted.
No, because
not
she's
potted.
about to flower. As we get, at the very tail end, I'm gonna talk to you about like what things don't go when, or what not to cut and when and why. So you do air layering for difficult to root woody plants. So this would be camellias, magnolias, azaleas, ficus. They're air layering is probably the only way that I've had success in propagating azaleas, for example. Camellias, I have a little bit of luck with, I guess. So then, the other kind of layering is called simple layering, and this is even easier. This is actually simple layering in my own yard. This is Aeschylus parviflora, or bottle brush. And all it is it's the same thing, except while this is still attached to the rest of the calicarpa, you bend it down, you dig a little hole, and you bury it, and you put some landscaping pins in there. And it roots. Edgeworthy is notorious for this too. Like I said, the bottle brush, I dig up about like 10 bottle brush a year just because it's layering itself. Sometimes I do it, sometimes it layers itself. But basically it's the same thing. It's called simple layering. It's you just bend this down to the earth, and you bury it, and you can wound it, or sometimes it just sits there on its own. But you have to have a portion of the other part of it. Part of it has to be exposed to light, because you still need some photosynthesis going on here, but it's going to throw roots from these nodes. And it's actually easier if, say you have like something that's super woody and you can't get to the green, or the green is just small and not much. This is how to do it, is do it simple layering in the ground. You're also maintaining the exact temperature of the soil that the mother plant's in. It's just everything about it's very, very natural. And we probably have plants in our yard that have done it, right? That's something kind of lay down, oh, it rooted itself. That's called simple layering, you didn't even know it. All you have to do is cut it, and you can dig it up and move it somewhere else. So this is great for plants with flexible stems. I've done it with forsythia. I had, I'm really not Frankenstein, but sometimes I'd love to like, mess with plants a little bit. And I actually built this arbor out of forsythia by like layering it in places, laying it itself, and then cutting it, and then training it in such a way. It took me 18 years, but it's pretty good. Bottle brush, once again, that's mine. Spirea does really great with simple layering. Roses, too. And that's pretty cool way to propagate your roses. So, other methods, I don't know. Is this a new presentation? Yeah, I think that's back to dahlias. Oh well, I'm not sure what that was another presentation. That was another presentation. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But let me show you a few other things about while we do some dip and stick of some stuff. Okay, so this is amaranth, coral fountain amaranth. It's related. It's just like localized bleeding, except it's coral. It's orange or kind of peach. As you can see, it is quite rooted in there. So this is a great thing that if I want a big, stocky, beautiful one, because they'll get 5 feet tall in a heartbeat, I want to take it from this. At the same time, I'm going to make this a much better plant by clipping it back, which I will do. I'll go up like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes. So this plant becomes nice and big and strong and beautiful. But this is the part I'm going to propagate. Now, what I want to show you about this is, so this is another one, but I'm not going to do the same thing with this one, because these would not take. It's because these flowers are going to seed already. It's one of the reasons, Nadine, why I don't think that it's a great idea to do the cleffer right now, because where it is in its blooming world.
What time of year, when, after blooms?
I would say after, yeah, but I would say before it blooms would be the best time of year, because you want to do it on new growth. You want to use the most aggressive part of the genetic code is always in the growing tips. So that's what I would say. So because this, and you can see at the very end, the flowers, and these, they all get big, 18 inches long, huge, big, fluffy things. But they're already going to seed, and it's already putting energy in a different place. So I would not do this. I might trim it back, but I wouldn't prop from these top cuttings. The top cutting that I just took off other amaranth, absolutely, and I'll get a really cool plant off of it. Pushing a lot of energy on that once again. I don't need all that stem, so I'll take that part of the stem off. It's still a little thick right there. I'm going to go back to here. Gonna hope it's going to root from there. But in the interim, I'm going to take off some of these flowers for sure. I'll leave some of them on because they'll help support the plant. But in the next couple days, it will naturally drop these leaves, and then the new leaves will start. This is super cool. Very, very, very easy to prop, and makes, once again, an enormous plant. And you couldn't, the root system on that one's super strong. I wish I could show you this in 3 weeks, because this is like, y'all, that is nothing but roots coming out the bottom. That's roots grown from seed. This harkens back to what I said in the beginning about, like, you're not going to get a root system like that, and this is the reason that they tore off the bottom of the top from that top cutting I took. But I'm going to get a really great stalk, and it's already flowering, so it's going to be flowering lower than this guy is, and, you know, and they're pretty fast at that rate. Something else that you really have to, sometimes consider is, like, this is Thunbergia. Y'all know Black-Eyed Susan vine? This is a pink version. Oh, there's a pink version. Well, not a lot, it's not very commonly grown and it's sterile. So the only way to get it to grow is, or to get it back every year, is to propagate it in the way that I'm going to do. This is not, once again, it's not proprietary, so I'm not doing anything wrong here. But you'll want to get, this is where you kind of have to look at, study a plant and see, okay, you want enough green going on, and you want 0 buds on it. You want 1 set of true leaves at least, and you want a node. So I'm going to take it back 1 place beyond this node, right here. So it pushes out back there. And then I'm going to stick. Yeah. I actually did a few hundred of these this year for a horse farm in South Carolina that is absolutely covered in pink Thunbergia right now. But the only way to do it was to hand propagate all these cuttings, and I wanted to make sure that I had enough to supply what she needed. So I overgrew more than I needed, and then boy did I have a mess in that greenhouse full of vines that were like, feed me Seymour, take it over. Another reason to propagate asexually is just because there's no other way to get it. It doesn't come to a seed. It's very tidy. It's a tidy plant. It doesn't go to seed. This is also very cool, Amy. I showed you this earlier. This is a dahlia.
Get out.
This is a dahlia, and this is propagated off of an eye of a tuber. I usually scrape off the smaller eyes and only plant with the biggest one. Well, this was about that long. Let's see if I can do it. Sure enough, in that seed star, this is how magical that stuff is to me. That seed star, it's fine enough. I put this tiny, tiny, tiny little twig of a growing tip of a dahlia off of an eye of a tuber. And that was 6/9.
June 9th, just a couple weeks ago?
A couple weeks ago. 10 days ago. Yeah, it's not gonna flower this year, but it was about an inch long, I guess, and put it in a hot space.
Wow.
Set roots almost immediately. I put it in this pot like 2 days ago, day before yesterday. But I was like, that's really cool. It's not gonna flower this year, and I don't even remember which one it was, but I just did it because I wanted to see if I could do it and how fast it would do. And it did a lot faster than I thought. At the end of this season, it will make a tuber that's probably the size of a new potato, which is going to be totally viable to flower next year. So, once again, super cool way to increase the number of plants you have, and it's like, oh, that's my favorite one. And you feel like, oh, I'm throwing away all these, you know. I chop back plants all the time to get them bushier. I could make more and more and more and more and more, but you just don't have room or time. But sometimes it's really cool to do that. I'm going to leave this up here in case anybody wants to look at this. This is stuff that has just propagated basically by itself in the greenhouse, just because it's fallen in, or I placed it rather. Exactly, fallen. But I placed it into these little containers, but you can absolutely see, like, mother of millions or mother of thousands right here. Y'all know this plant? It's kind of nutty. Every one of those little guys is another one of these waiting to happen. I have this echeveria right there that just the proximity of its little arms into that, it has dropped. Those little babies come out of that. I don't water this. It's subsists by humidity and, you know, an errant whatever. Sometimes, yeah, it's magic. It's just magical. These guys, it's a string of bananas. Oh boy. Since we've been here, it's rooted into the next guy. It doesn't. So basically, these guys that have thrown roots down into its next door neighbor, I can cut that. That's just like a stolon, basically. It's running horizontally, and it's got a little root system. Super, super cool. So y'all can look at those if you want to as you leave, or if you have any questions. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Yes.
Why, when you took a cutting of the amaranths, why did you use those flowers on?
Oh, I would take them. I would take them off. I was just like, whatever. Sometimes I do. If it's got like use in, because these are tiny little cells. If I can like arrange them around themselves so it stands up.
Okay.
Sometimes I use them in that, but in a couple of days, what's going to happen is the bottom leaves will yellow and fall off, which is fine, and that tells me that the plant's looking for something. And then the center of the growing tip is still, as it looks like the plant as it should be. I'm like, okay, great. I know that it's doing well. It's not until some of those smaller leaves, if they will, that's when I bottom water at that point. But yeah, you don't want the flowers on there because that's taking away energy.
Right.
But sometimes I use it as like a prop
Okay.
until it can. But basically just because today I was in a hurry and I didn't want it to fall down. But if I wanted to, if I planted a bunch, if I was propagating a bunch and they were close, they'll hold each other up, and that's the whole point of that. Or that's why I fill up trays usually. It's just, even though I don't need all that amaranth, but they're going to hold each other up, and then I'll just pick my strongest ones, toss the other ones or whatever. What else? Yes.
What about blueberry bushes?
Yeah. Easy.
What's the best way?
Layering, probably. Yeah.
What was the question?
Blueberries, layering, I would say. Well, they're not that flexible and simple, I don't think. I mean, maybe some of them, but I keep mine a little shorter. I don't know if they'd be flexible enough to go down to the ground. But you'll definitely, with the blueberry, you'll definitely have to go with the green part. The brown won't do. As a matter of fact, when you prune your blueberries, you should prune away the brown and blue. Only if it doesn't have new green coming off of it. That bottom third in particular, that's where you want your air to move to, all that stuff. What else? Yeah.
Geraniums, doesn't matter what time of the year.
Well, yeah, it kind of does. You're gonna want it as our day length is increasing. So we're still there. We're still in the 60 longest days of the year kind of cycle. I say like in the winter, unless you have lights, it's gonna be hard. It's just, yeah, and you're gonna have to fool them with root. Plants know what time of year it is by day length and root temperature. And so sometimes you want them to be actively growing. I mean, you just have to fool them in a lot of ways. I would definitely use a rooting horn on geraniums if you're gonna do it outside of, but like spring coming into the longest days of the year is probably the best time. I think mid. Yeah, you could. You probably could, yeah. That bottom heat's really, I don't use the heating mats myself because I have really hot greenhouses. But if I wanted to go something at my own house in December or something like that, I definitely would use a heating mat. Sure. Anything else? Poinsettias too. That's also the way to do it. Yes.
Yes, a few months ago I made cutting from a mulberry plant. Cutting about 18 inches
That was
tall.
because you pruned it and you didn't want to throw them out.
Uh-huh.
Stuck them
So
in
I
the
put
pot.
in
Yes.
there, as is, a little bit of powder,
Uh-huh.
and the two of them are mulberry.
Oh.
That's right, yeah.
When do you transplant them though? They're in this big tub, they're really, when do you
To
transplant?
put them in the ground in spring, maybe.
Either-
How big are they?
Yeah. Okay, so let them, I would go through the fall with them and let them defoliate naturally.
Okay.
And after they defoliate naturally, the plant's going into dormancy. I think you could transplant them then. I like transplanting in the fall, particularly because then the plants wake up in their new home. Yeah,
You
I
wait
think I
till the
would.
leaves are all gone.
Yeah, oh, yeah. So then you're beginning that stratification moment, which is like the mimicking of winter and what happens in dormancy. What else? Lavender? Lavender, it's stem cutting. Yeah, stem cutting. Yeah, yeah. Lavender, rosemary, those can be pretty simple. Yeah. Anything else? Look at the calls. Yeah, I also use, so I do this in, if I'm moving from, when I move from the little cells into like a 4-inch or even these tiny little things, I will use a transplant helper, like Biotone is a good one. I use Biotone for years. We're trialing some of this Nelson stuff, and it seems to be really good. It's called Genesis. You basically mix it in the soil, much like Biotone. I have a drill that has an auger bit on it, and I have my potting place is basically a fish pond that's sunk into a table. So I mix all my soil up in there. I'll just dump it in there. 1.5 cups to cubic foot, I want to say. Like breaks it all up and mixes it all together. I'm liking it. I think it gets some pretty good results on it so far. But yeah, it's easy to find. These days, it's super easy to find organic solutions for things like this. It's not crazy chemicals. I have my favorites and I have my least favorites. So far as like companies and products I use, I'm not big on Miracle-Gro. I think it's over-synthesized so your plants might feel that. But yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Anybody want to come up and look at any of this stuff or?